Welcome to a Marvel Snap data-driven meta report. We're looking at Untapped.gg's data. They are the most popular deck tracker in Marvel Snap. They have over 200,000 games collected of players at 3,000 collection level or above, and their rank at 70 to 100 plus. The way this works is it's ranking the decks in order of their average cube rate. And it's also just offering us a lot of data. For example, on Shuri, you can see that in the Shuri list they've compiled, Shuri's in 100% of them. But Red Skull, for example, is only in 98% of them. So it's not one exact list, and it does offer us the most popular version of the deck. This is not the best performing version of the deck, just the one that has the most games played. So the most popular version of Shuri is this one we've been seeing for a lot of months with Vision and Polaris. I would argue, though, a better version would play Captain Marvel and perhaps Zola or Chavez, although Polaris is quite good in the mirror to move the armor away. So we're going to look at all the decks in the top 30 decks or so, but let's not pay too much attention to the exact lists. In the next couple of days, I am going to be sharing my own meta report with my own lists, which will be more refined lists. Patriot somehow sneaking into the top here. The popularity not huge at 4%, although higher than I thought. I don't see much Patriot myself. The win rate at 54%, but the average cubes of 0.37. So a little bit of surprise value maybe with the Patriot in here. As you can see, there's lots of different versions. Ultron in 80% of them. And in the most popular version, I do believe this is KM Best, there is an Ultron. Ultron is going to be pretty nice at dealing with Sandman decks. Sandman have a 10% share of the meta right now, so 1 in 10 games. So having that big Ultron play to deal with Sandman seems quite important at the moment. It's also playing a Leech, a Blue Marvel, an Abomination as different options to play on turn number 5, and then going for the Debris, the Squirrel Girl. No Mysterio in this one, so again, I don't want to talk too much about the lists because that video is coming in the next couple days. Would I play this exact version of the deck? No, I wouldn't, put it that way. Is it looking pretty nice though? Certainly is. Okay, moving on into the B tier, and bear in mind that this is not a big gap between Patriot and Deathwave. It really is pretty minuscule, especially with the amount of data, it is really minuscule. So let's not read too much into it, but Deathwave making a comeback, 52% win rate, an average cube rate of 0.35. Now, because of its popularity at only 0.6%, I would argue a lot of people are going to be getting caught off by Deathwave. It happens at the start of every balance patch. Deathwave makes a comeback because you can play Wave on turn 5, and then on turn 6, you can play Doom, She-Hulk, and Death potentially if you got enough destroy triggers. Now, the problem is that as people switch on to this, they are going to just retreat if you play Wave on turn 5, and you're not ever winning more than 4 cubes against good players. I do think there's a different version of this deck which is better. It is lower in this tier list, but has a higher popularity. We'll take a quick look at that one now. This is basically the same deck, but without playing Death. So it's Doom Wave instead. On turn 5, you play the Wave, and then on turn 6, you can play She-Hulk and Doom, or She-Hulk and Arrow. Arrow, of course, just moving the last card played now, but that's still working well in a Wave deck. So I think this is going to be a better way of playing it. Again, not going to talk about the list too much because a lot of them, pretty much every deck I don't think is refined in these. Up next we have Dark Cork with a higher win rate of 56.3%, which is actually quite close to Shuri. Really impressive, but a slightly lower average cube rate. So this particular build has a 59% win rate in over 1,800 games, so a really strong list. Maria Hill surprises me, but of course you've got the Korg, you've got the Rock side for your Dark Cork, you've got your Zabu to make things cheaper, also helps your White Queen out, which can give you Dino value, and there's also a Doctor Doom in there as well. Agent Coulson, quite a solid option as well, because of course your Zabu's going to be reducing the cost of those cards, well, the 4-cost card in your hand, and it looks like a really solid deck. We'll look at the Elektra Ramp list, and again, you can see this is not refined. There's no 2-drop in here, which is trolling. Most of these lists are playing Lizard or Scorpion in as the 2-cost card. A lot of them are playing Chavez in my experience as well. So you can see that, again, not all of these are Sandman builds, only 76% of them. But yeah, a really, really strong deck at the moment. Deals with Hitmonkey, which is, of course, very popular. I would expect the longer this patch goes on, the worse Elektra Ramp will get, though, because there's going to be less Hitmonkey decks, which then means there'll be less Sandman decks as well, inevitably. And then maybe Hitmonkey could start making a bit of a comeback. But both of those decks, well, Sandman kind of keeping Hitmonkey and Bounce in check. We've got Sarah Control. This is a deck that if it wasn't for the 10% popularity of Sandman, would be doing a lot better, I think. I got to rank 90 with this deck on patch day, so really, really quickly. I think Bast is amazing in this deck. I think Hitmonkey is a great addition. It's got a high win rate, not a bad cube rate, and again, if it isn't for Sandman, it would be doing a lot better. So if you're looking to play Sarah Control, just try and make sure that you're only losing 1 or 2 cubes against Sandman. Hela somehow making it into the top cut, and this is just an example of where the data is certainly not perfect. Quite a high popularity at 0.5%. I've been playing against a lot of Hela bots recently. It is one of the few decks which bots can actually play very, very well. It's doing quite well. Lower than 50% win rate, but an average cube rate of 0.27 is not to be smirked at. Zabu Dyno, not very popular, but doing quite well. I think if you've got Dark Hawk is going to be a better way of going about this. Thanos Death. This has proven to be the most popular way of playing Thanos recently, which I'm a little bit surprised by, that it's more popular than just normal Thanos decks. But of course, you can play your Killmonger to kill all of your 1-drops and hopefully your opponent's 1-drops. And then on turn number 5, you're going to be able to play Wave, which is going to allow you to play potentially Death, She-Hulk, and Doom all at the same time. The Lockjaw, of course, can help you recycle the stones in other ways. You've got a Leech in there. I can certainly see why it's doing quite well. We've got another Patriot deck here. This is the one with Bast and Iron Man. I never really believed in this deck too much, and I'm quite happy to see that the other Patriot deck without these cards is doing better. This is Hoogland's list from a couple of months ago. It's definitely solid, no doubt about it. Bounce, doing worse than probably anticipated, and again, I think this is going to be largely due to that 10% share of the meta that Sandman has right now. Lots of different ways you can play Bounce. This list is not a good one. This is absolutely horrible. I think Bounce is really good, quite difficult to play, and again, just try and lose 2 cubes max against Sandman if you can help it, and you should be doing all right. We have normal Lockjaw doing quite well, quite a high win rate, but not the highest of cube rate. That's because it's quite difficult to get those surprise victories. This list looks nice. I personally wouldn't play in Baku. I would just replace that for a Nightcrawler, and then that list looks tickety bloody boo. Thanos Zoo, this is like an ongoing Thanos deck, kind of similar to Harry's list from a couple of months ago. Thanos is still super solid. There's loads of different ways you can go about playing it. Again, wouldn't read too much into this particular list. Discard's doing quite well. At a 51% win rate and an average cube rate of 0.21. Discard is really struggling against Leech, and we've seen quite a few Leeches with the Thanos decks because there's a bunch of different Thanos decks in this, right? Like this one has 6% share, this Thanos deck has 1% share, there's another one down here that has another 2% share. So this deck is doing very bad against Leech. It should be okay against Sandman if you have the right cards available, but it's certainly not the best deck, but certainly not awful. Again, I love Lockjaw in this one. I don't think Wolverine or Sunspot belong. Put Leech in and Sunspot in, and you're laughing to the bank. Galactus also only making it into the B tier, but as you can see, Null is not even in the top 6 most popular cards in these Galactus decks, and I think we can all agree that Null is going to be optimal. So I would wager Galactus quite a bit better than it is showing up on these meta reports. Kazoo is a C tier deck, quite low popularity, but it's doing quite well, surprisingly. Silver Surfer, definitely want to talk about. Not doing so well this month. In the previous months, it was in the B tier. I actually got to Infinite with a Silver Surfer deck, without Sarah though, with Kingpin in there instead. But it is definitely struggling against Sandman. It's struggling against Leech. It can also struggle quite a bit against Wave because they can get their She-Hulk into your Goose Lane after Wave, and you can't play anything into your Goose Lane. So not too surprised to see it struggling. I do think it's a solid deck. Definitely going to be better without the Sarah, though, with all the Sandmans and all the Leeches going in. Thanos Lockjaw, not doing as well as you might expect, although this particular build, which is pretty much exactly how I would play it, has a 57% win rate in 830 games. So do not underestimate the power of just normal Thanos Lockjaw. If I was playing a Thanos deck, it would pretty much be this exact list. Maybe I'd put Kang in there instead of Aero, but that is about it. There's some like Destroy deck that's doing okay in general with Nimrod. There's some Cloggers, junk decks. I've actually been having a reasonable amount of success with this style of deck myself as well. Certainly today with the Sinister London, but this meta report data does not include those kinds of days. This is a deck that is good into Thanos. There's not that much Thanos. It's probably not the best into Sandman decks. It's probably not the best into Wave decks, but it's okay. But certainly not that competitive. We've got some Hitmonkey decks. This is like just a Hitmonkey Sarah deck. Again, a big problem this list is going to have is dealing with the Sandman, which is rampant. It's going to struggle with Wave on 5 as well. That's a big reason that this Leech it struggles with. That's a big reason it's not doing so well. On patch day, this deck was absolutely flying. I got to rank 90 with it. I think this is my exact list, in fact. So yeah. Up next, we have like a control deck. Not really going to talk about this one. It's just a bit of a pile of cards. We will talk about Mr. Negative, though. I've had a lot of success with Mr. Negative. Again, struggles with Sandman, struggles with Leech, struggles with Wave. If it wasn't for that, I think Mr. Negative is in the best spot it's been in right now. I do think Hitmonkey is a great addition to the deck. You can win without Mr. Negative at times. Bast is just absolutely busted right now. And yeah, we'll also take a quick look at some of the decks here in the low game volume, like they haven't got enough games basically. She-Naught deck's doing quite well. These are ones where you play Magic on 5, skip 6, and then on turn 7 you can play Infinite and a couple of She-Hulks. They're doing quite well. I would argue though this is just like a worse version of normal Doom Wave decks, just a little bit more clunky. Dracula decks are doing quite well as well. This one has a 55% win rate. Atuma decks, not doing so well on the win rate, but doing okay on the average cubes. And we will also take a look at the beautiful move. This particular build is not doing well though, although just 47 games, this is kind of just based off like one player or so, right? I think Movement is a very underrated archetype. I really, really do. I don't like Leech in it, put Forge in there, and then Magneto or Chavez. Makes a lot of sense. So that is the data. Let me know what you think about it. Again, in the next couple of days when I've had more of a chance to experiment with some of these decks like Patriot, some of these decks like Deathwave as well, I will share my tier list and hopefully in there have more refined lists for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Let me know what you think about Patriot. Do you really think it's A tier? And are you looking for me to try out any of these decks in particular? Thanks so much for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.